Hey, ever wondered how to improve your conversations? Ever wondered why is it that when two persons are talking, they seem to be talking in two different wavelengths? And how are you going to resolve some of the conflicts that you face on the inside? And why is it that sometimes your passions and your goals and your dreams seem to be misaligned? Well, in today's episode, we're going to discover just that. Right, so what I want you to do first to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button, because every single week here at Coaching Genius Lives, we're going to be sharing with you top tips, top hows about how to improve your conversations, your coaching skills, and how this is going to impact your lives, your business, your negotiation, even your leadership as well. So for every episode, you want to find out more about what neurolinguistics is and what coaching is, what professional coaching is all about. This channel is just for you. Whether you're a life coach, a youth coach, or even a leadership coach, executive coach, or team coach, we will provide you exclusive content right in this channel. So don't remember to hit the subscribe button as we stay tuned for this episode. Alright, so for this episode, we're going to focus on the power of chunking. What on earth is the power of chunking? Well, chunking is one of the powerful questioning tools and techniques. And I would say there's a big difference between powerful questions and powerful questioning. Powerful questions are just a set of questions, but there's really no such thing as powerful questions. Why? Because questions in and of itself are not powerful. Questions taken out of context becomes just normal questions. So powerful questioning is a process by which you do questioning that really produces results for the client. So in today's episode, we're going to look at the power of chunking. What is it? We're going to help you discover what chunking really does and what it doesn't. So let's take a look at this. In this program, we're going to focus on one key aspect and just going to help you extract out some of the learnings, and we're going to also teach you as well some advanced chunking techniques. I'm going to show you what chunking is, how to use chunking, and how you're going to apply them, and how you're going to see this forward. So this is an extract taken from one of our exclusive programs that we have on this channel. So if you like what you saw and you like what you're learning from this program, do consider to join one of our programs, online programs, that you can learn more about chunking, and this will take your conversation skills to the next level. So this is not just for coaches, this is for individuals who want to discover more about yourself, or even is for personal development. This is going to be an amazing program just for you. So this is extracted from module number 1, Chunking for Clarity. Let's take a look at this. So the early beginnings of chunking came from the field of neurolinguistics, neurolinguistics programming, or NLP for short, and the coaching and therapy work. So John Grinder, who was one of the co-founders of NLP, together with Richard Bandler, Frank Pusilic, and many others who were the first few pioneers of NLP, John Grinder says this. He knew cognitive psychologist George Miller prior to teaching at UCSC. And George Miller was a really famous guy in the field of cognitive psychology. And he did a postdoctorate degree in George Miller's laboratory in 1969 to 1970. And the adoption of George's work led to the introduction of chunking in the NLP lexicon. So many today, you hear many trainers, many coaches, many speakers talk about chunking, but they never attribute and give credit to where credit is due. To me, I really honor where it comes from and how we can take it forward. When I met John Grinder, we asked him one question: how does he see NLP forward in the next few centuries and decades? He said, well, one thing that can do him justice is that we bring NLP forward in the next generation. So let's take a look at this. In George Miller, he has this book called The Magic Number 7. In 1956, George Miller proposed the idea of 7 in his book, Magic Number 7 plus or minus 2. It shares that most adults can store between 5 and 9 items in their short-term memory. He calls them slots. But he does not define how and what materials can be in those slots. This 5 to 9 chunks of information, it's what we can process, and thus chunk refers to any meaningful unit of information. Right? So that's a huge chunk. So now, when George Miller first proposed this idea, it was theoretical. It was a hypothesis that he made. He said, generally, he feels that maybe for most people, it's about 7, right? 7 chunks of information plus minus 2. And that's what most people can remember. Now, let me give you a quote from his book, right, from George ARMITAGE Miller, and he says this: and finally, what about the magic number 7? What about the 7 wonders of the world? What about the 7 seas, the 7 deadly sins, the 7 daughters of Atlas in the Pleiades, the 7 ages of man, the 7 levels of hell, the 7 primary colors, the 7 notes of musical scale, and the 7 days of a week? What about the 7-pointed rating scale, the 7 categories of absolute judgment, the 7 objects of span of attention, and the 7 digits in the span of immediate memory? For the present, I propose to withhold judgment. Perhaps there's something deep and profound behind all these 7. Something just calling out for us to discover, but I suspect that it is only a pernicious Pythagorean coincidence. This is extracted from George A. Miller, The Magical Number 7 plus or minus 2, Some Limits on Our Capacity for Processing Information from the Psychological Review in 1956. Very, very, very interesting, right? Here you see George Miller was fascinated by numbers, and he said, hey, why am I seeing patterns? So George Miller was a man of patterns. He noticed all these different patterns that's happening, and he wondered to himself, why 7? Why not 14 different things? Why not 16? Why not 154 different things? And it seems that the mankind or things around us seems to always navigate around this notion of 7, 7, 7. So he came and proposed this idea that probably we as humans can process a maximum of 7 things at any one single time. So today we have this notion as well. You cannot multitask. You can only focus on a few things at one time. So let's explore a little bit more about what it really is and what it isn't, so that we can discover a little bit more about how do we use this, how do we apply this, and what does this really mean for us? So let's take a look at this, right? So what is chunking? Chunking is a consolidation of information, ideas, concepts of internal strategies to form a representational hierarchy of ideas about how we arrange our thoughts. This sequencing of ideas are subjective in nature, but serves as a metaphor to aid in the individual's cognitive functionality and making sense of the world around. So chunking, really, it's about this idea that we are merging information together in different little pockets and different chunks to make sense. Because sometimes information comes to us, it's so many, right? Millions and millions of bits of information that comes to us all the time. So how do we make sense of all this information consciously and unconsciously? Well, we have this notion of chunking. We classify things together at a subconscious level, we classify things together at a conscious level. Think about this. When we do brainstorm as well, we tend to chunk things together. When we see, like if you have a whole piece of jigsaw puzzle, how many of you, when you piece jigsaw puzzles, you just piece it, just the pieces like this? No, most of us would chunk them together in little groups and little categories, the same colors together, the same sides together, and before we figure out the entire strategy of the jigsaw puzzle. So in the same way, we have this tendency of classification or consolidation of ideas into little pockets to help us facilitate our learning process. So let's think about this. What does this mean to us? Is there a certain hierarchy of these processes? Is there a certain hierarchy of this information processing that we're doing? How do we do it? How do we actually process all these things? Well, that has to do with the hierarchy of ideas and hierarchy of chunking. So let's take a look at this. How do we begin to do chunking? Well, in the process of hierarchy of chunking, there's a few processes that we can think of. One is what we call chunking up. When we chunk up, we think about the abstract, big picture, in trance, intuitor, right? So we think about the process. When we go chunk down, we're thinking about details, specifics, distinctions, out of trance. When we think about chunking sideways, we're thinking about alternative options, choices, other possibilities. So let me give you some examples. When we chunk up an idea, we're asking this question: what is this an example of? What does this? What does it all bring? For what purpose? What is your intention? When we chunk down, we begin to ask questions about how, what specifically, how specifically, what is holding you back, what are some examples. So we are going down, right, down the level of chunk. So as we go up at the macro level, we became more strategic. When we go down, we became more tactical. When we go left and right, that's chunking sideways. We're giving alternate choices. So we can ask questions like, what are some examples? What are some choices? What are some thoughts you have? What are other options that you have available to you? So this chunking sideways. So when we think about the chunk, this is one way you can do it. Most people use this like this, right? When we have ideas that are too specific, we want to go higher to get clarity about it. And then after that, if in order for us to take the action forward, we need to get clarity about how to do it, which is the steps, right? Which is the processes, the specifics, the tactics. So that's the how of things. So we're going to go chunking down. Now, there are logical levels in the chunk, so that helps us to frame about how we're going to go about asking questions. So this notion of logical levels, let me introduce you, is what we call the logical inclusion. So logical inclusion is the ordering principle of generating sets that fall into logical levels of hierarchies, and these two hierarchies are hierarchies of constriction, that means reduction of coverage under each successive partition induced by relative cost formation, or inheritability, the preservation of set membership criteria. So these two hierarchies must happen. So I give you an example. Suppose we have this thing called, let's do modes of transportation, right? Modes of transportation as the category. If I'm going to go down the constriction level and inheritability level, so meaning to say that this thing, if my next level of membership must preserve that set membership, so there's inheritability, so that each level must preserve whatever that's happens before. So when I say modes of transformation, tell me the modes of transportations. I cannot say ice cream. I cannot say chicken rice. I cannot say pasta. Why? Because they do not preserve the set membership criteria. So you must fulfill two hierarchies, one inheritability, the other constriction. So how do we assess this constriction? Well, constriction is the reduction of coverage under each successive partition. So modes of transportation, well, I can think of land transportation, sea transportation, air transportation, space transportation. So they are all different modes. That's one layer. Now, if we go another layer down, if we go under land transportation, we can think of cars, bus, taxis, trains. If we take the car and we go down one level, we can think of sedan, coupes, four-wheel drives, convertible. Those are cars, right? So each of this constriction must have successive partition, right, to induce a relative causal formation of each one of them. So that's the logical inclusion. Now, all this, I would say, happens very quickly. We're not processing these all the time, but we're processing this at a subconscious level and it happens really quickly. So, but it's important for us as a coach or conversationalist or a therapist or a consultant or leader to listen carefully about which levels of chunks the person is at, because this can help us to get clarity about where the person is. If not, it will go in all directions. So let's take a look at this. In chunking in choices, how do you apply chunk in decision making when you have two choices that seem so good? So we're going to give you an example here. When you have decisions that seem really good for all people, how do you decide? Well, one thing you can do, you can chunk up or you can chunk down. So I give an example, right? So the coach says this, right? The client says this to the coach. Well, I'm deciding between being an entrepreneur and continuing in my employment. The coach could ask the question, well, what would either do for you? Chunking up. Then the client may say, well, I want to be an entrepreneur because it gives me freedom, while employment is, I'll be so trapped. The coach asks, why is freedom important to you? Chunking up. Well, freedom makes me feel that I can do what I want, I can be happy, then I don't have to deal with those nasty bosses. Okay, then the coach replies, well, what will happen if you're happy? Chunking up. Well, I don't have to worry about what I can do. I can just be who I am, just be me, and don't have to be someone else. Okay, so notice we're going up higher levels of chunk, right? Each level is going higher and higher and higher to his values, to his purpose, his beliefs, his ideals. Now, as we go down the chunk, the coach could ask, so what I'm hearing is that if you want to be free, or you can be free to be who you are and not be someone else, you'll be happy. Confirmation that this is what he's really looking for. Yes, I'll be. So the coach begin to chunk down. The coach asks, so which choice will allow you to be happy? Well, the client says, actually, both of the choice, either one will make you happy. So then the client realizes when we begin to chunk the person up, he's now seeing it at a higher vantage point. So you can begin to see, hey, actually at the higher vantage point, if I want to be happy, there are many different pathways. Because I used to think that there's only one pathway to be happiness, but now with this process of chunking, I begin to see, hey, actually at the higher vantage point, there are many different pathways. I don't have to limit myself to one pathway. I can go through all the different pathways and still get the results that I want. So that's how powerful chunk can do for you, and can do for your employees, can do for your teams, can do for your individuals as well. Whenever people think there's only one pathway, they may not be right, because there are multiple pathways to the top. And that's why in coaching, in neurolinguistics, we are always there to give more choices and more options for the client so that they become more resourceful, so they don't limit themselves. And that's why in the coaching process, in the questioning process, we never want to lead the client in one direction. I know it's very famous in executive coaching and stakeholder-centered coaching. People always say, okay, we got to ask leading questions to narrow down. And that's a big problem, because when you narrow down, you presuppose that is a problem, but you never quite realize that may not be the real problem, because the problem is never the problem. So let's take a look at this. The applications of chunks. So we can use chunks in several other applications. We can use them in problem solving. We can use them in conflict resolution, agreement, team performance and alignment, clarity, pivoting, inner dilemma, feeling a sense of loss, decision making, transitive states. Right. So there are many different approaches that you can approach the chunks. Not just one. You can apply them in different contexts. In our program, the application of powerful chunks, we will show you step by step every single application they can think of, right? And why is this so? Because we want to help coaches to take this concept and apply it and make it applicative. And that's why in the program, if you come and join us, it's going to be a 12-week long program. We're going to bring you through over the next 3-4 months, a deeper analysis of the chunk and its application in different contexts, and so you can become more effective as a coach, as a conversationalist, as a leader, as a negotiator, as a manager. This is going to be really helpful for you. So let's think about this. I'm going to take us the next step forward, the advanced chunking process. So the advanced chunking process, we look at the up and down and the side. Now we're going to look at the in and out of chunk, right? So going into the person, we're going to the core, the being, the who of the personhood himself. When we chunk out, we're looking at the external interactions, the doing, the environment that's out. And we look at the cross, we're looking at the relation, the causal relation and the connection between the two. So when we chunk in, we ask questions like, how does this align to your beliefs? Where will this bring you? When we chunk out, how does this impact to other areas of life? What happens when those things, when you achieve them? Chunking across, how do these connect? Is it ecological for you? Does all these things make sense to you? How does this form the bigger picture for you? So in the advanced chunking process, we're not just looking at going up the purpose level or going up the meaning and going down the specifics. We're also looking at the interaction between that person and his surroundings, between the person and his surroundings. So that's going to be really important when we talk about advanced chunking. You'll learn more about this in our program. So when we look across this, chunking provides us with a kaleidoscope of things. It helps the client to see, hey, it's not just one path. There are many kaleidoscopes of things and opportunities. We're showing you opportunities after opportunities. And chunks are metaphors to aid in breaking down high-order information, to bring about specificity, and to provide macro-level perspective to bring about generalization. This movement between the generalization of truth and the specific of facts provides interchangeable kaleidoscope harmonics of information exchange to allow for new neural connections for the individual. And that's what I believe really the chunks can do for you. So that in the process of coaching the person, you begin to create this kaleidoscope, right? This in and out, up and down, this effect. So the client begins to see multiple spectrums of colors, not just one single spectrum. You can see multiple spectrums of rays, not just one. So in the whole process of powerful questioning is to expand the client's horizon, expand the client's choices, not to limit them, but to expand them. So the biggest question is, why do we expand them? Well, once they have more options, they can take the choice that they want that will suit their cause and help them get to the destination that they desire. Now, if you like this whole thing, we go much deeper over the next 12 weeks or next 16 weeks as well. We have this program called the Power of Chunking and Catalytic Conversations, where we go deeper in creating catalytic conversations that will help you as a salesperson, as a team coach, as a leader, as an executive, as a board of directors, or as a coach yourself. If you're a professional coach, this is going to be really it's a must-have for you. So you want to sign this up for this program. This 16 weeks program is an on-demand learning masterful class of the art of chunking. We have 5 different modules, over 15 different lessons, and we're going to have practices as well. So you can join us in our weekly practice where you practice some of the chunks in this coaching process. It's going to be really helpful for you as you tune in, right? So in module 1, you're going to look at chunking for alignment and clarity, right? We're going to discover how to use chunks in the alignment process of an individual. In module 2, we're going to look at the catalytic questioning and awareness process. Learn how chunking process creates a deeper awareness through the catalytic questions. Module number 3, we can look at quantum neural processing in chunks. How do this form neural connections with the individual? How does this form, what does this affect the neuropsychology of the individual? Apply informational chunks in the conscious mind to create an expanded resource states. Module number 4, we're going to talk about the unconscious chunks, the unconscious mind. Create deep inner rapport with the conscious and unconscious parts of the mind to elicit deeper inner works and congruence within. In module number 5, we can talk about the multi-fold applications. This is where I'm going to take you through several examples, right, several applications. I'm going to show you step by step how we're going to help them and help specific clients' needs. So apply the chunking process across various contexts and scenarios and highlight different strategies and tactics to effect greater alignment for the clients. So there you have it, the power of chunk. Really, really powerful skill, very powerful tool, and I hope this has really helped you. So what I want you to do is to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, share this with your friends, tag someone, leave a comment behind so that I know I can respond to you. If you have questions, I would love to hear from you. Post your questions down below in the chat box below because I want to hear from you. And do remember, right, help me to spread this word of the power of the chunk, because this chunking will really help people, help coaches, help individuals to get clarity about the life alignment as well. So if you like what you hear, do consider subscribing to us and share with us, and I hope to see you in the Power of Chunk, on-demand learning, and it's going to be an amazing class. Or if you're thinking about, hey, where can I learn more about this? Where can I? Is there a certification program as well? We do offer certification programs for you to become a certified coach. We have ACDP programs, ACSH programs. So to find out more, do write us a message. Do PM us below. We have all the links just below in the description box. Do find us out. Do subscribe to my channel as well, and also I'll see you very soon in the next video, because every single week we're going to produce new video contents for you and to help you become a better conversationalist. If you like what you see, I'll see you in the next week.